God promised through Isaiah to send his servant, one who would come with a zeal for God's glory and a compassion for God's people, to redeem and restore them, to fulfill the vocation and mission of their covenant with God. But not only that, the servant, he wouldn't just illuminate ancient Israel, but as Isaiah 49 says, he will begin to be a light for the nations so that God's salvation may reach to the end of the earth. But how will the servant complete this work that he's been given by the Lord? How exactly will the servant serve? Well, that answer comes into clearer focus in the last two songs of the servant. We'll look at the third of the four servant songs today, the one recorded in Isaiah chapter 50, verses 4 through 11. The Lord God has given me the tongue of those who are taught, that I may know how to sustain with a word him who is weary. Morning by morning, he awakens. He awakens my ear to hear as those who are taught. The Lord God has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious. I turned not backward. I gave my back to those who strike, and my cheeks to those who pull out the beard. I hid not my face from disgrace and spitting. But the Lord God helps me. Therefore, I have not been disgraced. Therefore, I have set my face like a flint, and I know that I shall not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. Who will contend with me? Let us stand up together. Who is my adversary? Let him come near to me. Behold, the Lord God helps me. Who will declare me guilty? Behold, all of them will wear out like a garment. The moth will eat them up. Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the voice of his servant? Let him who walks in darkness and has no light trust in the name of the Lord and rely on his God. Behold, all you who kindle a fire, who equip yourselves with burning torches, walk by the light of your fire and by the torches that you have kindled. This you shall have from my hand. You shall lie down in torment. Now, on opening lines here, the servant sings about the care that he takes for God's people. He acknowledges that his power is from God alone and that it comes from God's own personal instruction, the wisdom gained morning by morning as God awakens his servant to understand how life is to be lived well in God's world. And while such insight make many of us kind of intoxicated with a sense of our own superiority, the servant instead gently and graciously speaks this wisdom to those who need to hear it. He knows how to sustain with a word those who are weary. And in 2020, I don't know if there is a more beautiful thought to express than that God's words to us can sustain us. They can persevere us. They can strengthen us and focus us and protect us. God's words give us life. And each day, he awakens us. Morning by morning, he awakens us so that we too can hear his word and live. So don't take that for granted. Do as you're doing right now. Turn your attention to the words of Jesus and find life in them. Let him sustain you in whatever wearies you in these days that we're living through. But lest we think that all is sweetness and light for the servant, he sings further of the mission that he's given by the Lord. And the servant doesn't rebel or turn away from what he's told, despite the fact that his obedience to God will result in oppression and violence against him. 700 years before the incarnation of Christ, Isaiah records the servant's obedience that will result in accepting beatings, being spit upon, having his beard yanked out, suffering every shame that can be heaped upon a human. And while I can be often tempted to think that the Lord is inactive when I face challenges, the servant doesn't doubt God's help, even in the midst of all these affronts. He accepts their disgrace with resolve because he hopes in the Lord, and that hope won't put him to shame. God will help him. God will affirm him. God will vindicate his servant and make him outlast all his enemies, those who reject him and put him to shame, those who close his ears to the gentle words that the servant speaks. But after the servant concludes his song, we hear something different. A word from the Lord who sent his servant. It's both an invitation, but also a warning. It invites those who want to rightly honor God to express their reverence through obedience to the voice of the servant. Their own deficiencies are no impediment. Even though on their own they only have darkness, they can trust and rely on God, and he will provide light to them. He will gladly and generously give them all that they lack. But a warning follows on the heels of this offer, and its severity only intensifies the graciousness of what the servant provides to us. People don't just sit still in darkness. They'll try to find a light somehow. But those who reject the light and the sight that's offered by the servant and choose instead to strike out on their own, following the unreliable torchlight of their own efforts and understandings, for those people, God gives this warning. Whoever rejects his light will receive torment instead. There's no need to do that. He's offered all the light that we need. He's speaking the very word that can sustain the weary. But there's no help for those who won't trust anything except what they can grasp and control in their own two hands. But for those who do trust, God gently gives every grace we need and provides confidence that we can trust him to bring us through whatever suffering and challenges we face on the road home. And God continues to speak his word and wisely sustains the weary. And we know this because of the ultimate price paid by the servant himself. It's hinted at here, but it's detailed in full in the final servant song in Isaiah 52 and 53 that we'll look at in our Grow groups this Sunday. So whether on Zoom or in the room, we'll see you there.